Hey everyone, Joshua Hanlon here at the Tank Museum Bovington, and today we're taking a look at the M4A2 tank from the movie Fury with the Lego model built by Dan Siskind from Brickmania on top of the actual tank used in the movie. Standing next to the tank now, we've got David, the tank expert, and then Dan Siskind from Brickmania, who designed this model. So Dan, if you want to take us through all the different elements that you captured from the Fury tank here.
Sure. This is a Easy 8 Sherman, which means it has the big wide tracks on here. Easy 8 being the E8 suspension, like M4A3 E8. In this case, it's M4A2 E8. So you have the suspension. I built this when I saw that the movie was coming out. I was like, oh, I need to get pictures of this thing, and I wanted to build something because I knew the movie was going to be big, and I wanted to make a tank that followed it. So in homage to the movie and for the museum's sake, I have the little Fury printed on the barrel, and we have the crew as if they were actually right out of the movie. But there are a lot of like add-on features, like the logs hanging off the side, all the stowage on the back, which is not normal for a Brickmania tank. And of course, you try to do the helmet here and the gas mask. It's all added on it, extra tracks. Basically, try to be as faithful to the movie and the history of the tank as we possibly could. So,
one neat thing you notice right off is the number of minifigs that you've been able to include here.
Right. This particular one has all five crewmen on it. So that's, if you were to close up all the hatches, you'd only be able to fit a few inside of it. But this one we do have all five, just for the sake of making it look as much like the movie pictures and posters as we possibly could.
What sorts of play features does this model have if you can take the minifigs in and out? And
well, as you can see, there's 4 opening hatches. So you have the hatches for the 2 drivers, the driver and the assistant driver, the commander, and this is a loader's hatch. And I actually have the loader standing outside. This particular tank has an extra Browning machine gun, 30 caliber machine gun, welded on on a pintle onto the roof of the tank. That's for the commander, and that was actually common in the field, especially during the later part of the war. Of course, it has the M2HB. All these provided, of course, by Brick Arms, for like the best minifig weapon manufacturer in the world.
Maybe you want to spin it around here real quick. I know you mentioned you added some extra details here that you don't normally have on a lot of the tanks.
Right, it does have a lot of the stowage on it. Unfortunately, we did make a little bit of a kit version, and that came with a sticker pack that has all kinds of extra, like ammunition crates and stuff. But this one particular doesn't have the stickers applied, so we just have the stowage. But you have extra fuel tanks, buckets, spools of wire, fuel canisters. And of course, all the crates, and as mentioned before, all the stowage, like bags and stuff. Just like try to be as faithful to the movie as we could, and faithful to what was actually going to be on one of these things, or what would have been found on these at the end of the war.
Yeah. And it's a great looking model with lots of details. So then, David, we'll have you maybe talk about how did the museum end up with this tank that was used in the movie?
Well, Dan touched upon it a bit, because the United States Army only ever used the Ford-engined M4A3. So an M4A2, which has the twin diesels in the back, is not a typical US Army tank. But it was the only one we had, the nearest that was right for the job. So that portrays Fury. And in our view, it's taking the part on M4A3, but that's up to individuals. I don't think it matters too much when the tank's actually running, but it has twin diesels in the back, and it seems to go on beautifully forever. It's got a 76mm gun, which is typical of the later Shermans, and as Dan said, it's got the horizontal volute suspension system, making it an E8 version. So it's got the new angled front end here, which makes it a later version of the Sherman anyway. So it's quite an interesting vehicle. It has the larger turret, which the 76mm gun would require, and enough room for a crew of 5. And that's pretty well typical of this type of tank. And it looks quite good.
You see a lot of the extra kind of bits and pieces that Dan captured on the model there that have been added on the tank. So would that have been typical of a lot of these tanks during the war, where troops kind of adding these elements on the outside of them?
Yeah, there were 2 or 3 things. One was to carry spares, like spare bits of track, spare wheels, because they could come in useful. Another was to hang logs on the side, because that added to protection, though apparently General Patton hated it. If you cluttered up your tank with stuff, he used to go mad. But generally, that's why that was done. Most of the other things are creature comforts, like the bucket and so on the back. carried for the benefit of the crew. And quite a lot of tanks had them in one form or another, just to make them more like home, I suppose.
That definitely makes sense. So Dan, going back to you now, when you're working on a model like this tank or some of the other tanks you've designed at Brickmania, what type of historical research goes into that? Because we're surrounded by just an incredible collection here at the museum of the tanks they have on display. So are you able to take inspiration and ideas from some of these types of displays when you're working on models?
Absolutely. I mean, we try to do as much research as possible. Over the years, I've accumulated quite a reference library. And then, of course, whenever we get a chance to go to a museum, we're crawling in and out of anything that they'll let us crawl in and out of, taking pictures of our own. So, a first-hand account is definitely the best way to experience a museum, learning. So going to museums and I actually like museums that have restored all their stuff back to factory freshness, which in this case is not. We're looking at something that has all this field modifications on it, but I prefer the factory fresh look and then let everybody else add on to it or detract from it as it was. So this particular museum, has a lot of stuff in both states. So I'm really enjoying coming to the Tank Museum here.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of inspiration, I think, on display for, any type of military Lego builder if they were in the area to stop by.
Right, and not even in the area. If you haven't come to this museum, if you don't live in Europe or in England, I would suggest making a special trip for it. So once in your lifetime kind of thing, because it's definitely, they have things here like this particular tank that you're not going to find anywhere else. And not only does it have the history of the tank itself, but of course there's the movie tie-ins but a little bit for everybody. So.
For sure. Well, thank you, Dan. Thank you, David, for your insight once again. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to learn more about the museum's incredible collection of tanks, make sure to subscribe to their YouTube channel. And if you want to see more of what Brickmania has to offer, head over to brickmania.com.